Alright, Chapter 8, Monitoring the Network. This chapter is actually pretty cool, and if you've never got into this stuff and you're kind of new to networking, this is more of a fun chapter. So we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about Syslog, SNMP, and NetFlow. Now, in brief, Syslog is a way of storing kind of the error messages from your router. SNMP is a way of gathering some additional information, what's my CPU running at, things like that. And then NetFlow, in a nutshell, is which users are using the most traffic, which links are getting hit the most, those things like that. So it's ways to monitor your network and to get information on the health and what's actually going on your network. A lot of times as IT people and going through school, we think, hey, my job is just to keep the network operational. Well, the network's operational most of the time anyway, without you doing anything. And nobody's going to pay you to sit in the chair. Basically, your job is, when the network is up and running, your job is to be, looking for new ways to improve the network speed, efficiency, new technologies, things like that. And to do it, you need as much information as possible. So these are tools that you can use that are relatively free that you can gather that information. Alright, so first we'll talk about Syslog. So your router has a way of creating error messages, and it has a bunch of different levels of these error messages. And by default they're shown on the screen. But you can set it so that these error messages, when they occur, can go to a server. And then you can see the error messages for all of your Cisco equipment. And you can kind of see history, things like that. Otherwise it just shows up on the screen, it kind of disappears, and that doesn't really help you if you weren't there, if you weren't consoled in or telnetted in when it happened. And by errors, I don't necessarily mean something wrong has to happen. If an interface goes up, if an interface goes down, things like that. So all that stuff triggers a syslog or a logging event. So if you're at the router and you're consoled in, you can see these logs. If you're terminaled in, through Telnet, you can see these logs. But you want a way to have all the devices send their logs to the same location, things like that. So that's where Syslog really comes in. So here are your different levels. Level 7 is the lowest level, and that's your just debugging, and then informational level, and then notification, and then you get warnings, and then errors, and then critical, alert, emergencies. Now, I just took the CCNP right before it changed, and on the CCNP, knowing which order these were in was actually a test question. So now that they've changed it so that this is now a CCNA topic, you will probably see at least one question on your, probably just one question, one or none, question on the CCNA about, hey, which one is more critical, an alert or an error, something like that. And you need to know these level, the severity level, because that's how you set Syslog up. You say, hey Syslog, I want you to log, everything starting at level 4. And then you get level 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's nice to have this printed out somewhere or in your Cisco book. Now, I know I've mentioned the Cisco book or Cisco notebook to you several times throughout these courses, but it's because, when you graduate, nobody expects you to memorize all the stuff. You're going to go in, and then they're going to say, hey, can you set up logging on this? And they're not going to expect you to be able to just go sit down and plug it in. But it's nice if you've got, a 3-ring binder with this stuff set up, and you say, oh, well, let me go to my Syslog page. Hey, here's the error levels, here's the commands to set it up, and then you're all done. So it's nice to have that stuff. And again, don't forget, in networking, there's a lot of things that we do once and then never touch for a period of years. Once you set up DHCP and it works, you don't really have to go back and change that a whole lot. Once you set up your syslogging and it's going to your server and you're logging you're checking the messages, it's all set up and it's running. So you don't have to keep going back unless you need to make a change to it. But we don't necessarily make a change that often. So again, it's nice to have detailed notes on how this stuff works, and so that a year or two from now you're like, oh crap, how did I do that? Alright, and then one key note, anytime you're using any kind of error control logging or SNMP or whatever it is, it's very important that all of your devices are getting their time from the same source. And that way, if something occurs on your network, somebody penetrates this router and then they get into another router and then they get into a server and then from the server they jump to a PC, something like that, you can go back through the logs or the FBI or whoever it is and they can actually see by the timestamps when things happened accurately. You know, if this guy is 2 minutes and 30 seconds off from this guy, it's a lot harder to track that stuff. So keep in mind, they're assuming at this point that you've set up NTP, Network Time Protocol, on your equipment, and all your devices are have the exact same time set across them, so that you're able to track issues across your network. All right, so again, each log has a timestamp, and that timestamp has the date and time on it that's in there. And again, so we can track and see the, how these things occurred, what happened first, what happened next, things like that. All right, your Syslog server can be anything. The most popular one out there is Kiwi Syslog Server. But for some reason, the IT department at Stark had an issue putting it into the image that they push out to the classroom. So we use Star Labs or something, Daemon tool or whatever it looks like. Let me show you what it looks like. So this is the one we use. We use the Star, Syslog, Daemon, blah, blah, blah. But it's kind of the same thing. So this piece of software, just you put it on a server or a PC or something like that, and basically you just set all of your equipment up that when it has one of those error messages to send it to the server. And then you can find all your messages in the same location, and you can sort them by time, date, by device, all that stuff, however you want to do it. Remember, as an IT administrator, you could have 20 switches and 2-3 routers out there, and the last thing you want to do is sit at your desk and try to, okay, I got to plug into router 1. Okay, what does his syslog say? Oh, it happens at this time. All right, let me get out of there. Now let me go into router 5, and let me go into switch 2, and have to find all this information. It's nice to have it all centrally located. So again, we use the Syslog Daemon. Again, most of the world uses Kiwi Syslog Server. Alright, Kiwi looks like this, has a lot more bells and whistles. Now, there's a free trial, and then you can buy it. Now, if you buy it, it's like, let me go back to the page. Almost 300 bucks. Somewhere there's a free version, but they got it hidden on their website. You got to really dig for it. But we'll just stop there. Oh, Kiwi Syslog Server free edition. So again, if you want to use that in class, you can. Again, almost every networking guy I know uses this one, but you can use anyone out there. Remember, it's just a tool that goes on your PC or a server that actually collects the information and allows you to sort it. Alright, so back to our slides. The Syslog server, or the logging on your device, obviously records this message. So if I do show logging, hey, from console logging, there are 32 messages logged, and you can kind of play with stuff there. But again, that's not very convenient. The last thing you want to do is, hey, I want to go into this device, and then I need to get out. Then I need to go tell it into this device, and I need to go out. I need to tell it into this device. It's a lot nicer and more convenient to have it all in one source. All right. So how do we turn on this logging? How do we send it to our device? Well, what you're going to do in class is you're going to turn on your software, which in our case is the Star Syslog. In the rest of the world, it's Kiwi Syslog. And then you're going to point the logging on the router or switch to your device. So logging, and then the IP address of the target, and then logging trap 4, and logging trap 4 tells you, hey, trap any logging messages at level 4 or less. So this would grab levels 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and would send them to this IP address. And then logging source, interface, gigabit Ethernet 1, the source, where am I going to grab this stuff from? And then we're going to go to interface loopback 0, and we're going to shut it down. So when I first create loopback 0, the interface comes up, and then you can see, hey, I got a error message 3, level 3, and I have a level 5, and then I have a level 6. So remember, level 6 was informational. Hey, we're starting something up. And then up and down are different levels. So if my interface is up, that's a level 3. And if I see something on the other end, it's only a level 5. So then I shut it down, and then I see, hey, the interface is going down, so that changes the state. And then if I turn it back up, and the link comes up, that's a level 3. So I'm only going to record levels 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I did trap 4. So only this and this would actually show up in the log. So what does the log look like? Well, if you look at the router and you do show logging, include change state up and down, if you individually, it looks like this. So I would go and I would see, hey, hey, loopback 0 change state to up, and then loopback 0 change state to down, then loopback 0 change state to up. So I can see this up, down kind of behavior going on. But again, going through this, you can't sort it. You can't do a whole lot. All you can do is look at it on the router. So that's why it's a lot easier to have it in a Syslog server, because you can manipulate the data. What IP address does it come through? What level is it? What other things? But you get the idea. So that's Syslog in a nutshell. It's just taking the logging messages from your router and sending them somewhere. But those logging messages only generate when certain things happen. So, interface up, interface down, that kind of stuff. So at small organizations, and even some medium, where you don't have the money to buy some nice network monitoring utility, you want to start with Syslog. It's a nice, free, easy way to get your feet wet on, monitoring your network, when do things happen, that kind of stuff. All right, then we move into the next level, SNMP. Remember, Simple Network Management Protocol. And from here, we can start getting fancy. There are a lot of fancy SNMP applications out there, like What's Up Gold. All right, What's Up Gold is like the Cadillac of monitoring, IT monitoring. You can buy any of their systems, and again, you get dashboard displays, and you can do network maps and other tools on there. And they actually have some free tools. But the big thing is, now I can see, what's my utilization, what's my CPU utilization at, what's my memory at, which links are getting hit the most, when do links come up, when do links go down, alert me, send me a text message to my phone if, CPU utilization hits this, or if this link goes down for, so many seconds, things like that. So it's got a lot of nice stuff, but, starting at $1,600, that's a bit pricey. And now, obviously, they have a free trial, so you can set this stuff up. So, again, that's the Cadillac of network monitoring systems. And any, decent data center that you walk into is going to have some kind of monitoring, where they've got somebody, he's got a screen to watch, all of his servers are running, there's tons of monitors on them, so that he knows, which server is hitting this utilization, which server's not, which server's getting, or which bandwidth that line coming in is getting hit, that kind of stuff. Alright, so the big differences with SNMP is you can go two ways. Remember, SNMP is built into the devices by default, but typically these applications require you to put some kind of agent on the device. So like What's Up Gold, you install some kind of What's Up Gold agent on your router, on your server, and then it reports back to the server. Now, you can get, don't forget, SNMP is built into all your devices, so you can get regular messages, or, without the fancy GUI interface and things like that, from your devices without having to buy something. So that's what we're going to talk about. Creating, having your device pull his own SNMP information and give it to you in a log format. So in SNMP, there's the way the operation works. There's get request, there's get response. It's just saying, hey, I want to check this, I want to check that. Now here they mentioned the MIB. Hey, I want to check the MIB. That's just the management information database to find out if one of the interfaces is up. So you send a request and then you get a response and that kind of stuff. So kind of simple how it works. Just like any other software out there, you send a message, you get a message back. But you can actually go through Wireshark, and you can actually turn on your network card, and you can actually see these specific messages going across. So with SNMP, depending on when your device was created, it either supports version 1, version 2, or version 3. Obviously version 1 is the oldest and version 3 is the newest. Version 3 supports much more fancy stuff like authentication, so that we're not just passing out our information to any random Joe Bob out there. Now, when you turn SNMP on your device, you've got two options. I can do read only or read write. Now, obviously, read only, I can't make changes. I can just read the information. But read write allows me to read and write access to the objects in the database. So you need to be careful about turning that one on, because obviously, again, somebody can, change your data if you allow them. So we typically just do read only because we want to see the information coming out. So this is what a piece of information looks like in the management information base. You've got your version of SNMP, you've got your name of your community, in this case it's just community. We have to name each SNMP group with a name, and that name is called the community name. Just like in wireless, our name is the SSID. In Windows domain, our domain name is just the domain name. But in SNMP, we call it a community. And then the address, and then whatever his ID number is, things like that. So don't worry yourself too much about that. But configuring, now here, when they show you how to configure it, they make it a lot worse than it has to be. All you have to do is step 1. All other steps are optional. So all you have to do is go to your router and then turn on SNMP-server space community space, and then whatever you're going to name the community. So it can be community public, community private, whatever you want to name it, space, and then either read only or read write. So let's say I want to do a private one that I can read write. I would go to global mode, type in SNMP-server space community space private space RW, enter. And at that point, I'm done. It's now going to I've now turned that on and created a community string called private that I can access. Now there's other stuff that you can turn on, the location. So SNMP server space location space, I could put Bolivar 2811 router, things like that. Contact, SNMP server space contact space, who do I want to contact if there's something issue, or hey, this T1 is owned by AT&T, here's the number of the call, and then here's the circuit ID. So there's a lot of other options you can turn on, but you only need to do that very first command. All right, and then you can do show SNMP, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff, but then it shows you the packets. So I've got 19 trap PDUs. Remember, Cisco tends to call the upper 3 layers PDUs, protocol data units or primary data units. So it's got 19, messages through SNMP that it's got for you. And then you can do show SNMP community, and it'll show you all the different SNMP triggers you have set up. So in this case, I've got one called ILMI, I've got one called Bat in August, then Bat in August -1. I have no idea what these names are, but these are all different community strings. So then they get into best practices a little bit, and this stuff is all kind of common sense. You want it everywhere on your network, from your border all the way back in. You want to make sure none of this stuff is accessible from outside your network. So make sure that it's blocked, so no SNMP or syslog, any messages, can go out past your router, out into the internet. And then have all your devices report to a central location, and you may even have them go to 2 locations, and that way you've got a backup if one fails. There should always be 2 people that check logs. And this happens whether it's a syslog, an event log, backup tapes, or anything like that. There should always be 2 people. And the reason I say this, let's say you've got somebody doing something wrong. Oops, sorry about that, I got interrupted. All right, let's say you want to do something bad. You want to go and access the HRPC. So as the IT guy, you have the admin password for some reason. Anyway, sorry about that, I got interrupted again. So you want to do something bad. You want to access the HRPC. And then you do it, and you're like, oh crap, now there's a log event. Either, let's say, whatever I did, it created some kind of log somewhere. Well, then I can go back there and I can erase the day's events or that kind of stuff, and nobody would ever know. So that's why you should always have 2 people checking those logs to make sure that a day doesn't go away or something like that. Like the organization that I worked at, the event logs and all that stuff was collected and backed up every week, and it was backed up by 2 people. So 2 people had to go verify that the information was there, back it up, verify that the backup was correct, and then start the next week's information, and then they both had to sign a log. And that way, the only way somebody could cheat was if 2 people agreed to wipe the log for that whole week. And then obviously they know eventually if something happened and it was investigated and the log was empty, we would know that they were both in it, so they would both get caught. So keep that kind of stuff in mind. All right, and then the last section is just NetFlow. Now NetFlow is a utility that allows you to actually see the flow of information or the flow of data across your network. So now I can see, hey, sales is pounding my network, or marketing is hammering the network, or something like that. Or I got one PC that's just going crazy and hammering the router with stuff. So obviously the purpose is, to efficiently measure the network. As the networking guy, it's important for us to have the information. We are information technology, so we are the keepers of the information. So it's our job to know all the information that we can. People expect us to know when the busiest hour on our network is, what's the busiest day of the week of our network, what's the busiest month, that kind of stuff. If we know that stuff, then we can plan around it. And the only information or the only kind of example I can give you, years ago I was at a place where everybody was always, hey, every Thursday the network is so slow in the evening. Every time before, between 2 and 5, the network is crazy slow. What's going on? So we didn't have these tools set up back then. So basically, we just did a survey out to all the users and said, hey, what do you do on the computers between this time frame? And when we got it back, we realized that data processing, medical records, finance, and I got like 2 or 3 other departments were all running very data-intensive reports on a SQL server. And that's what was really causing the slowdown, because the SQL Server was also running the practice management software that the nurses used to schedule appointments. So we were able to reschedule that stuff, but if we had NetFlow, we would have been able to see for ourselves, hey, all these departments are hitting it, and it would have been a lot easier to troubleshoot without doing surveys and having to piece this information together over the course of many weeks. So NetFlow, again, has many generations, so as it goes, it gets better and supports more features and things like that. But, source and destination IP address, source and destination port number, layer 3 protocol type, and then the logical interface are obviously big key ones. So here, setting it up, interface gigabit 01, enter, IP flow ingress. Remember, ingress is coming in, and then IP flow egress is flow going out. So, measure the flow going in, measure the flow going out, and then exit. And then where am I going to send this information to? Hey, destination is here, and we're going to do version 5. Then you can verify the information on the device itself if you wanted to. Show IP cache flow, show IP flow interface, what interfaces are set, and hey, this one's set to in and output. And then show IP flow export. And then you got to set up some kind of collector out there to grab this information. There are GUIs available. And here's one. This is Scrutinizer, and then you can see the dashboard. Hey, here's the different hosts. Here's the different flow patterns. Obviously, red has a lot more flow than some of the other colors. So it's just a way to see, who's using the most bandwidth, which links are getting hit, things like that. So again, very neat. Small and medium business can really get a good benefit from these processes. But once you go to medium and large businesses, they typically have something in place, some commercial product like What's Up Gold that's already running that you're going to have to learn. But again, it's nice as a consultant to be able to go into small businesses and set this stuff up for people. And then they're like, oh, it's so great, and you were able to do this, just for a few hours worth of work, and then I didn't have to pay for What's Up Gold. It was $1,600 to start, and then it was $1,600 a year, and that kind of stuff. So that's about it in a nutshell. You got a fun lab this week. We're just going to set up the Syslog server, and then we're going to send system messages back and forth. So that's it. So I'll see you guys in class. And don't forget, got questions, bring them up in class.